you have to find a way to justify it. You have to find a way to give them that drive, and most authors will give that to you in detail. But even those characters deserve that full attention, and that winds up being a way to complete that, to tell that complete and full story. So the second part of it is making sure that each of the characters, even the ones that we would consider the villains, get their full time in the sun, if that makes any sense. And then the rest of it is just, don't paint with broad brushes. When you're reading, the narration is there for a purpose. So when you're reading the stuff in between the dialogue lines, the stuff in between the dialogue lines is not just filler.
Right.
It's setting the scene. It's describing for the listener what the room or the space looks like, or what the atmosphere is like, or whether it's hot or cold. And there's ways that you can convey that vocally. You can make a person feel cold, or you can make them feel warm, or you can make them feel uncomfortable, or you can make them feel, completely wrapped up in warmth and in love. You can make them feel lots of things with just your voice.
Very well said, T. Very well said. Now, this next fan question may be a little bit of a challenge, because I think every author, every creative person, whether it's author, editor, narrator, or artist, they always struggle with this particular question. And that is, of course, either favorite character or favorite moment. Now, for you, T, I know you've also done work under many other pseudonyms, so this one may be a little bit of a challenge. So throughout your career as narrator, and you also include your time as an actor as well, when you were on the world of theater as well. But who has been your favorite character or type of character to play? And on the flip side, what character or type of character has always been the most challenging for you?
Yeah, you're right. This is a tough one. Mostly because usually it's whatever the character I'm in right now. That's the one. That's my favorite one, is the one I'm working on right now. You immerse yourself in the characters that you're playing at the moment. They kind of have to become your favorite at the moment. And I say that because my first gut instinct was to say my favorite character is the current lead character in this book that I'm reading right now. That was my gut. That's too easy, right? I mean, that's too easy, because yes, that's what I'm involved in. That's where my brain is. Long term, I had an opportunity to play Hamlet in a really, really interesting production about 20 or so years ago. And it was like I said, it was a different type of production. And I don't know that I would be given that opportunity again, but man, it was so rewarding. And as difficult and as challenging as that role and that production was, it stayed with me. And so I would have to put that one at the top of the list. What was the second part of the question? So which ones were most challenging?
Yes. So which character or type of characters are always the most challenging for you?
Because I try to spend as much time as I can getting as much background as I can about the different characters. And so I try to make sure that I have a good feel about, oh, okay, well, they're making this choice, or they're saying this line, or they're making this character choice based on all of this background information that we have, and all of that. So when it comes to that, especially in like a rehearsal process for like a stage play, by the time you get to where you're in the productions or you're in the performances, you have gone through all of that. But even though you felt it, you haven't really let it fully express itself. That feeling, you haven't let it fully express itself out, and it's certainly not going to play on a stage, let alone a camera. So trying to going through a rehearsal process and allowing yourself to, or not allowing yourself, telling yourself you're not going to do those, you're not going to make those choices, you're going to trust in this new process, and you're going to go through that, is difficult enough. But then the role that I was attempting to do that with was a role. Well, it was the role of George Tessman, who is Hedda Gabler's husband in the play Hedda Gabler, and he is. I'm trying to word this so that it's not a judgment of the character, because that's the other thing they teach you, is don't judge your characters. He wants to do everything in the world for Hedda. He wants to give her the world on a platter. But he is doing that without taking into consideration that that is not what she wants. Right? She doesn't want to have the world handed to her on a platter. She wants to go out and come up with her own platter. You know, and put her own world on it. And yet he's from that old school mentality that well, it's my job. I'm the man. I'm the man of the house. I'm supposed to provide you with all of these things. And she doesn't want that at all. And so much so that she toys around with the idea of, and she's flirting with someone else in his house, and he's completely unaware of it, that it's happening. I was playing a role of someone who was completely disconnected from the other characters in the play. So there was this sense of complete and total isolation from the other characters in the play, which, whether it was on purpose or not, translated to being, or at least it translated into feeling like it was being isolated from the other actors in the play as well. And then on top of that, I was also trying to give up all of that other stuff. It was a very depressing process. It was lonely. So that was really difficult to do. That was the character that I struggled the most with. But like I said, there's a background behind why. Ultimately, I think I succeeded to a certain extent. I would not say it was a major breakthrough type of moment. I would not say that my performance was stellar in that production by any stretch of the imagination. But I do think that I succeeded in at least not falling back on those old habits. And so that's the takeaway that I took from it. But man, I have never felt more lonely during a rehearsal process and less part of an ensemble. And it was probably, like I said, it was probably all in my head. But it was a very real feeling. So that was the most difficult.
All right, I see. Now kind of going into semi the realm of the business side of being a narrator. Let's talk about probably the big thing about what does it mean to be a creative in the digital age, because the industry has definitely changed. And I'm sure you've definitely seen, as an actor and as a narrator, that the world of voiceover work and narration has definitely taken on a new form.
For sure.
20, 30 years ago, before the rise of the internet and social media, almost all audiobooks and narrations were done by people who were either on television from Broadway in the theater background. They still do that now. Like, absolutely, it hasn't gone away. But now, with the rise of social media and the internet, you have a new wave of narrators, those who may not be seen as classically trained, like that's what they went to school for, but they have taken acting classes to hone their voice, and they probably naturally have a really good voice that they could just refine for their books and for specific genres as well, which that's another thing people don't really take into consideration, that there are some books that work for some narrators, but not all books work for every narrator. That's just how, at least from what I've seen as an author, with the same mentality that not every author can write the same book. It's going to be vastly different.
Sure.
And with the rise of the digital age, we've seen, of course, a lot of people building their social media profiles, their brand, and, trying to build awareness of who they are, what they specialize in. And while that is, very, very good what social media has done for the creative and indie community, it's a double-edged sword. We leave ourselves exposed to the darker side of social media. And with the rise of AI entering the world of audio and narration, I've talked with a lot of people on the show, many of whom are probably good friends with you, T, who have given their concerns, and rightly so, about the way the industry is going, that it could just be overwhelming and just really make you consider, do I still want to be in an industry that is actively pushing away human voices in the sense of making, what's the word that I've used, mass-produced content, but it lacks substance and authenticity. So with that said, T, what has still disciplined you to stay true to not just yourself, but to also stay true to your commitment to working with authors, working with fellow creatives in an industry that is actively changing and teetering from going fully artificial and semi-human and technological?
So the short answer to your question is the listeners are what keep me going. And this is where I come back to, I am a listener, right? I'm an active audiobook listener. AI narration is just awful. It's why I'm not on TikTok. I think I do have a TikTok account. I think I have a TikTok for both me and my my pseudonym, but I don't even have the app on my phone anymore, because I can't stand watching. And if they pop up, and every now and then they'll pop up on Instagram. Somebody will take a TikTok video and they'll port it over to Instagram, and it'll pop up on a reel, and I'll hear that annoying AI narration voice that comes from whatever TikTok generated thing is. I will turn a video off, or I will skip past a video faster if I hear the first syllable of that voice quicker than anything. And there's two different words. They've got a male one and a female one now. And they may even have more than that now, but I don't even know. If I hear anything that sounds fake like that, I'll skip past it. And it's even worse with audiobooks.
Yes.
And I think that a majority of listeners, a vast majority of listeners, feel that. They know that part of what makes good narration, and it doesn't even have to be great narration, but what makes good narration good is the experience, the life experience that the narrators themselves bring to the table when they put the words that are on the page through their filter from their eyes and process it through this gray matter that we have between our ears and have it come out of our mouth. There's something about that process that cannot be replicated. And I will go so far as to say that I don't think that it will ever be possible to be replicated.
Right.
Everybody keeps saying, well, what about you? In science fiction, they keep seeing things like, like the HAL 9000 computer was very realistic in its conversation and all that kind of stuff. I was like, was it really? Was it really? I don't think it was. It sounded natural, but at the end of the day, you could still tell you were talking to a computer.
Yes.
C-3PO in Star Wars, you could still tell that you were talking to a machine. You know what I'm saying? And that's a testament to the voice actor who was a human who voiced both of those characters. They knew that it was a machine, right?
Yes.
And they made it sound like it was a machine. So, or they made it sound enough like a machine because it was not a human being. So I guess it kind of comes back to my point. Anyway, while I absolutely detest anything having to do with AI narration, any of that kind of stuff, I'm not as concerned about it taking over. I know that Amazon has their active program, pushing it to authors, going, well, hey, let us have an AI narrate your book for you and all that kind of stuff. I think most authors will realize that the money that they save just trying to get an audiobook out there is not going to be worth the money that they would save, because they're not ultimately going to sell any audiobooks. They're still going to have to pay for it, and ultimately that's going to be a loss because nobody's going to buy that audiobook because it will sound like it was narrated by a computer. And there's something about that warmth of the choice of how to inflect a sentence. I just gave the example a little bit ago about it. It's not just the dialogue lines. It's how to evoke that feeling of bitter coldness of an atmosphere. A computer can't do that. They've never felt it. The feeling of terror, the feeling of what it means to be, to feel completely safe just because someone is around, is not something that a computer can recreate. So there's lots of those little things like that I don't think a computer can ever do. That having been said, there's one element of this new world order
yes,
that I think we have to acknowledge, and that is that since COVID, we really have and I'm living this example right now. Narrators, voice actors, when COVID hit, we all went into our booths, we put the microphones, we hooked the microphones up, we were like, we can still work, and really and truly, that was when I decided that I was going to make a career change. For 20 years, I was a university professor. I taught theater and directing for 20 years at the university level. And when COVID hit, I was kind of already thinking of heading this direction anyway. But when COVID hit, I went, okay, now's the time. And that's when I really started pushing myself toward audiobook voiceover and trying to make it a full-time thing. Was when COVID hit. And it took me this long to get it to where it was. But anyway, I digress. Going into this booth and recording for hours on end is a very isolating thing. And so on one hand, I'm thankful for the narration community being as open and as positive as it is, because I won't say I've met because I've never seen these people in person, but I have met, or I have gotten to know some of the most genuinely supportive and upbeat people that I think I have ever come across, who don't consider this as a competition. You know, when I land a book, or when I get chosen to be the narrator for a book, it doesn't mean that they don't feel like, and I don't feel this either, that I don't feel like, well, that's a book that someone took away from me. No, that means that means that someone else is getting to do the same thing that I'm doing, and then we're all doing this all together, and that's great. And they're doing great work. And the more that they can do, that means that the more popular that this this type of work is, and the amount of support that's there, the amount of open dialogue that's had, especially in working with like independent narrator or independent, if as an independent narrator working with independent authors, you know, where you don't have the protection of something like ACX or Podium or any of the major publishing companies or anything like that, kind of brokering the deal between you and the author. When you're dealing directly with the author, there's all kinds of opportunities for mishaps to happen, you know, things to go awry along the way, contractually, you know, and discussions about how to manage those things on your own has been invaluable. You know, how to set up a contract for yourself, how to, you know, what are some of the things that you can do to help yourself out. You know, obviously nobody's offering free legal advice. Everybody tempers everything that they say with run it by your lawyer first, you know, and everything. But all of the advice is sound and fully supportive. So even though we are isolated in our little booths here, we're doing everything that we can to create a thriving and healthy community of people who can support one another. And you know, in my career as a theater actor, that was sort of built in. If you were doing a show, you were with those people 8 hours a day, you know, 6 days a week for as long as your contract was. And it kind of came with a built-in family. You know, they were your family for a while. But when you're an independent narrator and you're coming into your own booth, which is at your house, and in some cases you just never leave your house, you know, except maybe to go to get groceries or that kind of thing, it can be very isolating. And so to say that we've gone out of our way to create a positive and supportive online community is very heartening. Social media is a drag, but it's a necessary drag.
That is true, T. That is absolutely true. Now, as we wrap up this incredible narrator interview, before we officially end, are there any people you want to give a personal shout out to who have helped you along the way, or you've connected in your journey? And if you could just give one piece of advice to anyone wanting to get into this industry, what would it be and why?
Let's see. For people wanting to get into the industry, just start reading. Just on your phone, grab a magazine, grab a book, put some headphones on, and just start reading. You know, that's the best way to do it, is to just start reading. You are going to make mistakes. There are those days when I start narrating and I can't get through a full sentence, and I record the same sentence 18 times before I finally get through it, and it's frustrating. And there have been days when I'm like, I can't record anymore. I'm done, because I've read the same sentence 3 times. Or at least it feels like I'm going to do that. So there have been a couple of days where I'm like, I'm done, because I'm that frustrated. There are other days when you will read entire chapters and it feels like you haven't made any mistakes at all, and you will just flow through and everything's cooking and you're like, yeah, I'm the best narrator in the world. You know, it's great. But you're not. But you know, it feels that way. You can wear the cape for a little while that way. But the best way to do it is to just start reading it. Just start reading. Just start reading. Eventually, though, you'll need to start putting together a tape and submit it. You know, so don't be afraid to do that. You also don't have to have the perfect voice. There's no such thing. So don't feel like that's the case. They are looking for all kinds of voices to voice all kinds of things. So, don't feel like that. You don't have to have a buttery smooth, deep male baritone bass voice, or that you have to have a perfect, deep alto, feminine voice or whatever. You don't have to have that. Whatever, as a lady, you don't have to have that either. That's just not the thing. That's not a realistic thing. If you want to do it, just do it. Just do it. In terms of people that I would like to thank, there are too many. But there's one in particular that I really need to thank, and that would be Annalise Scott. When I first started, well, not when I first started, but about 2 years ago, when I was really getting into this and really trying to make it a career, I had reached out to her just sort of on a whim, really, to see if she would submit a duet narration audition for a series of books, and we booked the roles together and recorded the book, and it turned out to be a huge hit. She was further along in her process of developing an audiobook career as a narrator than I was. But she has and continues to be invaluable as a resource to me, as someone that I can reach out to and go, hey, this does this seem weird to you, or does this seem right, or has this happened to you, or that just anytime that I have any kind of questions or anything like that. When I finally joined SAG-AFTRA, which was just been a couple weeks ago, when I finally joined SAG-AFTRA, I just sent her a quick message and said, "Hey, just FYI, this is done. It's great, and I just wanted you to know that you couldn't have done it without you," that kind of thing. And she was right there back at it, going, "Hey, we're there with all the attaboys, So she's been fantastic. She's been a really a mentor, and it's just been fantastic. I've narrated several books with her, both as pseudonyms and as and under our real names. And yeah, she's one of those people that's a really strong mentor. There's, everybody at Podium Audio, everybody at Tantor, who have really just given my career the skyrocket. Keep sending me the work. It's great. I love that stuff. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. But yeah, it's a rewarding career. It can be challenging at times, and it can be daunting. There's nothing more daunting than being an independent contractor in anything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it can be really rewarding. And working toward that SAG-AFTRA membership is well worth it. So keep plugging, keep reading the words.
Beautifully said, T. Beautifully said. And on that note, viewers and listeners, we conclude this incredible narrator interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I want to give a huge thank you to T. Quillin for making his official debut here on the channel. Now, T, where can people find you on social media if they want to reach out and connect? And where can people check out your other works on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and the other platforms?
Yeah, so you can find all of my social medias. I try to keep them the same way. It's always at T. Quillin. It's tquillin.com as well as the website as well. Searching me on Audible is probably the easiest way. Just first name, last name, T-E-E, like a golf tee, and last name is Quillin. Yeah, Audible, anywhere audiobooks are sold, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's basically the best one. But all of my socials are always that.
Excellent. I will attach all those down below in the description of this video. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another amazing episode here on the show. A huge thank you to T for coming on the show, making his debut. And if you would like to see him back on the show, possibly with a fellow narrator, you know what you have to do. like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. And as always, this has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill, signing out. Wish you all a wonderful day wherever you are in the world,